And for Caleb Williams, playing on the road in a hostile environment in a primetime game is something you have to experience to know what it's like. Yeah. And I'm not talking about going to Utah, which is supposedly a tough place to play. I'm talking about an NFL stadium where you look outside and Derek Stingley's up there and Hunter's lined up at left end, and, you know, like Azeez Al-Shaair can track some of these errant balls down a lot better than the guys last week did. As you've heard, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for you listeners each week. If y'all haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code GREENLIGHT, and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code GREENLIGHT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code GREENLIGHT when you sign up. Let's get into the preview, shall we? We got Stanford Steve coming on late in the show to do picks. Me and Macon are pretty proud of ours last week. I don't know about Steve.
Yeah, I haven't lost a game yet. Big deal.
Still in second place. Undefeated and in second place. That's got to be jarring.
Yeah. Long season.
This slate looks ridiculous this week. I really don't know what to do. So where are we starting, though?
Let's start in Detroit.
Yeah.
At present, the Lions are 7.5-point favorites over visiting Tampa Bay. Both teams coming in 1-0, thanks to David Montgomery's.
Is this the must-see game? I think it's the must-see game. I think the Bucks are very good. They showed that last week, taking care of Washington. I know Washington's going to be up and down this year, but the Bucks have good bones. They bring everybody back. They look solid. Liam Cohen and Baker for a week one, marriage. It looks pretty good. They're still in the honeymoon phase. I think it's going to be the most physical game of the week. And the injuries, Nolan, if you want to go through those, they are relevant.
Yep. Yeah, from the Lions side, Penei Sewell with an ankle. Marcus Davenport had a great game the other night prior to the injury with a groin. And then starting safety Kirby Joseph dealing with a hammy. They were all non-participants on Wednesday. And then on the Bucs side, Winfield has been ruled out with a foot injury. And then they're banged up elsewhere on defense. KJ Britt dealing with an illness. Logan Hall, Kalijah Cansey, and Zion McCollum, who is concussed against the Commies. They were all limited participants yesterday.
So the number one injury we got to talk about is Winfield. If Winfield's out, and he is, that creates a big mismatch in the middle of the field with Sam Laporta. So that's the number one thing. Like, what are you going to have to do to make up some of that deficit there? Now, the second most troubling injury for me is I think KJ Britt will be fine with an illness. Most guys play sick. They're good to go. Like, who knows? He could have a stomach bug. But I look at the guys on the front with the assignment being what it is this week. And as many times as Detroit is willing to pound the ball, you need all hands on deck in that defensive line room. So keeping an eye on that stuff just does come down to the front on both sides of the ball. Ragnow's the guy that every camp we visited in the NFC North, all two of them, you asked them, yes, an interior guy, who's the guy that you think about playing? And it's Frank Ragnow. And, obviously they have Sewell, they have Decker, they have Glasgow, they have a group that's deep and well coached. But it starts with the center for me, and Penei Sewell on the edge. And so Vita Vea is that guy. You've got a guy, we've got a guy. We have a hell of a guy. The guys that I worry about are the guys on the edge setting edges. I mean, I thought Shoyinka did a great job setting some edges. He set an edge on the right side of the defense, and maybe you can throw the film up for the people on YouTube last week. That was fantastic against the Commanders. And I thought Diaby really stuck out. You got to find him matchups. I think he might end up being your best rusher, which might not be a surprise to anybody who's a fan of Tampa Bay, but you're going to want to figure out who this guy is because I think he's going to show up in some key spots this year. When we were at Inside the NFL this week breaking this game down, Bill talked about that play. You know, like Penei Sewell is a difference maker in a very unique way in the run game, the way Trent Williams is, you know, and getting him on the edge last year. There was a tackle pull play where he pulled all the way across the line, passed up the edge player, blocked the edge player by breathing on him because the edge player stops and he jukes him and goes to the flat and just demolishes somebody. And he's blocking two. He's blocking two with his presence. You got to get a piece of him when he's out on the edge. If you're an edge player and you're in a 9 and he pulls or something like that, like, or you see him flash across the formation, you gotta make a pile, right? You can't have him unimpeded getting on the second level. So I think about in the run game, it comes down to Vita Vea setting edges and taking care of Penei Sewell. You can't allow him to be a weapon for this offense. And on the back end, Jameson Williams, ton of targets last week. I mean, he was damn near had more targets than anybody in the league. So obviously a statement from Detroit. We're going to get him the ball. You got to take care of Laporta somehow, and you can't let Jameson Williams beat you on one explosive play.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How good a quarterback is Jared Goff? Because I can't figure it out. It might be one of the most complete offenses, even though they don't have that third receiver, because as you said, when Amon-Ra is taken away, they got it to Jameson. They have the two-headed monster at running back. They have Laporta. But I can't tell if Jared is quarterback 5'6" in the league.
He's not 5'6".
Or 11-12.
He's 11-12. And this is no disrespect. I think Jared Goff's a tremendous player. These guys don't grow on trees. And I think he deserves a lot of respect for what he's been through, resurrecting his career in Detroit. He's been to a Super Bowl, lost his run game in that game, happened to be playing the best play caller defensively maybe of all time in Bill Belichick. So this guy is this close to having a ring. I don't think people give him enough credit. I'm sure Lions fans listening to this are like, you're disrespecting him, not putting him in the top 10. But if I were starting a franchise, maybe he's on the tail end of the top 10, but you're going to tell me, I'll rank him right now. Patrick Mahomes, number 1, Josh Allen, number 2, Lamar Jackson, number 3. And I'm only saying this right now because of the way Joe Burrow's playing, but generally I trust Joe more in the playoffs. But what is this fucking like just an arbitrary ranking, you know? I think CJ Stroud's up there. I think Stafford, when he's healthy, is up there. Okay. That's 6-7 guys right there. Dak Prescott, you got to give him some love. He's the top 10 quarterback. Rodgers, if he can move, you saw the balls he throws, what he's capable of doing the other night. I mean, he still got it.
Hurts and Herbert.
You're putting him over Herbert. You're putting him over Hurts. You're putting him over. I think he's in that category, and he's different, right? He's different in that he doesn't add any mobility to the equation. He's not going to give you a quarterback run game like Jalen Hurts.
But this team doesn't need that.
No, it doesn't. You got your run game elsewhere. What you really have to worry about with him is pressure up the middle. If there's pressure up the middle with Jared Goff, he's going to throw you the ball, and he becomes more like a 15 to 30 guy. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's every guy. If you take one thing away, you know, there's a delta between the best version of them and who they are in conflict. And when you create that conflict for Jared Goff, he just doesn't have the mobility to get off that spot. So I look at this and I say, you know, if you're Vita Vea, you got to take over the game. You know, and it'd be really nice to have Kancey. For the Lions defense, look out for Bucky Irving. He got the ball a good amount last week. They like him. Rashad White's the other back, obviously, the starter. But they got 2 guys now they can give the ball to. And I thought the Rams did a good job getting matchups. Nolan, you pointed this out, you know, going empty against base, you know, getting the slot matchups on Barnes, Anzalone. Maybe Liam Cohen sees that and says, hey, we can empty this thing out a little bit. But a guy who's got to win his matchups is Chris Godwin. You know, his name is Rod Godwin. Did you know that?
No.
His real name is Rod.
Wow.
Rod God.
Rod, why would he not?
Hot Rod Godwin?
Talk about leaving
What a
money on the
myth.
table. And as a guy with the name Chris, it's totally unremarkable.
Wow.
Like, I never wake up in the morning, I'm like, what a cool name I have. His name's Rod Godwin. Rod Godwin needs to win his matchup, whether it's Arnold or Amik Robertson inside. And I think Arnold was all over the place last week. So a big difference maker, you might look at this and say, coming in the season, I think Carlton Davis is going to make a big difference, and I think he will. But he's playing Mike Evans, a guy who, and you're like, yeah, well, Carlton Davis knows this team well. Yeah, he knows this team. He don't want to guard Mike Evans. Sometimes we talk ourselves into things, and I actually think this matchup slants to Mike Evans. When you really think it through, Mike Evans knows Carlton Davis pretty well.
Yeah.
And so
Aaron Glenn did say that Carlton Davis gave the best introduction to the Bucks receivers in the defensive meeting that he's ever heard from a player.
Well, he's going to know them well, and he's going to know the tendencies. Like when Bill Belichick pulled me in the room 2016, we were getting ready to face the Rams, I could tell him a lot about that defensive line. I could tell him who gets reached easily, who's susceptible to taking a back door, who's lighting the ass a little bit.
Snitch.
But that's what you got to do, man.
First 48. Did it feel like first 48?
It did a little bit. It did a little bit. They got me like a Coke. Bill was nice to me. Matt Patricia was mean. They had me in in a little room. You try to tell them everything you can, and that's the way it goes. And when you spent that much time in a room, you know the personnel. Okay, like let the coaches figure out the scheme, but you know the personnel better than the coaches preparing for the game. So I don't think that's insignificant. But as far as his matchup with Mike Evans, it doesn't do him any good that he's seen him a bunch.
Yeah.
And Baker's going to throw him the ball. You heard him mic'd up last week. If he's not doubled, I'm throwing him the ball. And in that wild card game, which was a fantastic football game, Evans killed him. Now, the thing that killed Tampa, and I think they're a good third down team, is Baker missed some throws on third down, and they had some long third downs. Go back and look at the third downs in that game. So you got to be good on early downs, and bad news for you, DJ Reader is back. So when DJ Reader's on the field, you better know it. And I don't know. He's coming off a quad injury he had like in November. Okay, so he's right up against it. He's probably going to be on a pitch count. When he's not in the game, you got to pound the ball. So the obvious thing, and we haven't even talked about this, it's best for last here. Haven't even mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. I thought he was fantastic, albeit against some fish the other day. But he has carved himself out a great young career, and he's got a deep bag of tricks. And one of his tricks in the bag is I can just move inside. Hey, if I don't like my matchup on Wirfs, which I would give the edge to Wirfs, if I don't feel like going up and lining up over Gedeke, who, by the way, has a concussion, something you got to watch out for, then I just go inside and rush over Cody Mock. That's what I did in the wild card game. Got great returns on that. He's a great inside rusher. I would look at where he moves up and down the line because he's going to find a matchup he likes. Where do you put Goff?
Well, the premise for the question was I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think I lean closer to 15 than, 6.
Okay. Well, I mean, most people would lean closer to 15 than 6 probably. And the truth of the matter is you could probably argue that he's 10 to 12, 8 to 12, something like that. And Lions fans will say that's not high enough. We didn't even mention Brock Purdy in that ranking. Brock Purdy has emerged into being a guy you could talk about being in the top 10 for sure. So there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league. If we don't consider yours a top 10 guy, that doesn't mean you can't win the whole damn thing. I picked you to win the damn Super Bowl. I'm not saying he's a bum, but you got to take care of the interior offensive line. If this group had Chicago's offensive line, it'd be a problem.
New Orleans, they put up 47 points last week, is in Dallas. Cowboys put up 33. Another matchup of undefeateds. Cowboys favored by 6 points. This will be the Tom Brady game.
Who's pretending? I want to know who's masquerading as a good team. One of these two teams is probably masquerading as a good team, or maybe not. Like maybe they're both pretty good, and that's all we can hope for going into this matchup because they both look damn good week one, albeit one of them played the Panthers and one of them played a quarterback who had a 9.3 QBR.
Easy. That's Nate's division winner.
Right. I know, but it's early.
Super Bowl team or just division winner?
I think it's Super Bowl team.
Okay.
I think you sold him short on that.
Okay.
You talking about the Browns?
Yeah.
We're talking about the Browns.
It's all part of the plans,
It's
guys.
all part of the plan.
One step closer to Jameis.
But the bottom line is injuries are a big deal in this game. And Nolan, the Honey Badger and Lattimore thing, one of them would be a big deal. Two of them might be fatal for this team. Like the only saving grace is it's kind of offset by a Ferguson injury that I think could potentially make Dallas struggle offensively. But a lot of things have to go right. Like if let's say Lattimore plays, okay, you got to worry about CeeDee Lamb. I respect Cooks. Okay, you got to win that matchup with a Debo, who we like. So that's a key matchup right there. Because if I am New Orleans, easier said than done, I'm going to try to take CeeDee Lamb away. I'm going to go cover 3. I'm going to cloud him. So it's basically like corner underneath, safety over top. You take that post safety in the middle. You pay attention to whatever it is you have to pay attention to away from him. And then you rally to tackle him if he does get the ball. But, like, I wouldn't let him go off on us if I could help it. And I think, like, that sounds unrealistic when you got Ferguson in the game. But if Ferguson's out, I actually feel like you can say, hey, we feel good about our Debo matchup on Cooks, and let's do everything we can to take care of this guy, especially on early downs when you don't have to man up. I would cloud him. And then on third down, I'm just doubling the fuck out of this guy. Because I still think Dallas has to prove that they can run the ball. I don't think although Zeke looked healthy and young,
feed him.
And the offensive line's a solid group, I have to see it to believe it, in a game where things are in phase and they have to run the ball. And I think the Saints defense is up to the task. If I were the Saints, I'd say we're going to stop the run with a light box. Like, let's find out, We're not gonna put 8 people in the box. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have to stop the fucking run with 6-man looks sometimes, and we're gonna have to rally to the ball if it gets on the perimeter and tackle CeeDee Lamb if he gets the ball. But they are gonna have to run the ball up our ass if they're gonna beat us. And so make them prove that. The front's gonna have to step up. New Orleans offense a lot better. Okay. Surprise, surprise, they're bringing Kubiak. He's a real play caller. Not take anything away from anybody last year that didn't seem to cater to any of Derek Carr's needs. He actually does pretty well, turning his back to defense, play action. There was a huge uptick in that. It was 39%, week 1, 84% motion. And I would absolutely have a lot of window dressing if I were playing this group, because Kalen Carson, who, not for nothing, hung in there in his first NFL game, but didn't really get tested. The script of the game, yes, Cleveland had to throw the ball, but Deshaun couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So, I want to see what he looks like this week. And I think, not for nothing, he's going to have to come down and tackle in the flat, because this team is doing a lot more outside zone, some, pin, pull, toss stuff. Like last year, they just jammed the ball up the middle of the defense, and I think this fits their personnel better. So I would test him. I would test him pre-snap. I would try to get the – now, be careful with some of this outside zone, because we know this really well. Penetration kills zone scheme, and I would go into more of the gap scheme stuff that gave Dallas trouble last year. I would look at the Arizona game. I'd say, how can we scheme this group up? It's a different defense, Mike Zimmer, but I would lean more into gap scheme, and I would test Carson, because I don't think he's really been tested yet. Your number 2 in Shaheed went off last week. You have to love that matchup, and Olave barely got targeted. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's not the worst thing in the world when you put up damn near 40 points or whatever they put up.
Yeah, 47. It sounds like
almost 50 points.
It sounds like your weekly 1 to 10 worry meter regarding your splash bet with BetMGM is at a 1 or a 2.
No, it's at like a 5.
Okay.
Because this defense isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But if they have a problem at that second corner spot, then things get complicated. And I don't think, it's one of those things like it's an incomplete grade week 1, because that was not a pro offense.
Deshaun Watson pressured on 43% of dropbacks.
That is the problem, because those 2 tackles have to play better. Even against the Panthers, they gave some plays up. And Penning, we know who he is. You're gonna have to keep guys in and take shots. You have to run the ball, non-negotiable. I don't want this breakdown to feel like I'm leaning New Orleans. I'm not. But I'm giving New Orleans the blueprint hopefully, to make this a game, because nobody wants to see a fucking blowout. I want to see a good game, right? So to me, it's about stopping the run with a light box. It's about winning your matchups outside, extra attention to CeeDee Lamb, and then offensively, you cannot let DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons wreck this game, because they wreck games. These two guys, they're Batman and Robin. Like, this is maybe my favorite Batman and Robin duo in the NFL, outside.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a better one.
Chargers, maybe?
No. These two guys are stone cold killers. DeMarcus Lawrence is a stone cold killer. They fucking ruined that game last week.
Yeah.
And Penning and Fuaga, who has a back, you better help them. You better help them.
Little T-Rex arms.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the first time in 8 years that a team that won by 20-plus points in week 1 will be a 6-point or more dog. Not since the Blaine Gabbert 49ers.
Yeah, it makes you think that Vegas is like, go ahead, bet the Saints.
Wait.
Might say the most about Carolina than anybody else.
So Diggs for the Cowboys is closing in on breaking an interception record. Minus 145 for Derek Carr over 0.5 interceptions. You like that?
You like that?
To throw two?
To throw 2 picks. I just don't. I think they talked all offseason about how they're going to run the ball. Come out in 22 and do it differently than they did last year. 2 tight ends, 2 backs, and pound the ball. I don't know that it's going to be a game where Derek throws the ball 30 times. Now, if they get down, I like that prop.
Because just like you said, with pressure coming from both sides all the time,
and he can't move.
We might get some ducks.
He can't move. You got to keep him upright. He exited a few games last year.
Yeah, true.
Now, I wouldn't mind seeing Spencer Rattler. I wouldn't mind Derek Carr having a hangnail one week so I can see what they got in Spencer Rattler, because I'm excited to see him play. But I think Derek looked a lot more comfortable last week. Now, it was the Panthers. Here comes the big test.
The Arizona Cardinals are 1-point favorites at home against the Rams. The Rams have won 13 of the last 15 in this series. Both lost week 1 by 6 points. Squanch will be on the telecast.
Squanch is doing the game?
This one.
Our boy Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
Out in the desert. Hey, Nolan, tell me about the Rams walking wounded.
It's a long list. Puka Nacua, Steve Avila, Joe Noteboom. So that's 3 offensive starters, 2 on the O-line. They were placed on IR on Wednesday. We won't see them until October. As you know, Darius Williams already on IR, the starting corner. And then right guard Kevin Dotson. Sean McVay said he's hopeful he's going to be able to play this week. And then they also had 2 other DMPs on Wednesday in another starting corner, in Kobe Durant dealing with a toe, and tight end Davis Allen.
You got to feel like this is bad luck. They have one of the best training rooms in the whole league. Reggie Scott's been doing it a long time. I don't think this is a product of poor, athletic training. I don't think it's the weight room. I don't think it's practice. And maybe that's the problem, because McVay runs a really loose ship, like as far as a workload is concerned in camp. I don't think these guys are wearing out. It's just they're having bad luck. And it's starting to remind me of 2022 already, which was not as good, right? Like last year, everything broke right. And I think they've got a shot in every game they play in, as long as Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and a running back are present on that roster, right? Like they went to Detroit. That's a damn good team who didn't play their best ball, but they hung in there right to the end and were totally banged up. Matt Stafford, really gutsy. Like, I got a lot of respect for this team. So I'm not going to kill him for having a bunch of injuries. I'm not going to bury this team week 2, but this is a big opportunity for a Cardinals team that I've kind of taken a liking to. Liking. I'm not saying I'm making my main squeeze or anything. They got side team potential. They have a no-name defense with a chance to make a statement.
They are who we thought they were in week 1.
They are yeah, exactly. I mean, like, they're explosive offensively, but defensively, you can rack up a lot of yards on them fast, because you go down that list, other than the safeties, there's just not a lot that I get excited about. And, yeah, you're down Puka Nacua.
And on top of that, for the Cardinals, one of their corners, Max Melton, concussed. He was a DNP Wednesday as well.
So hopefully you get him back. It's just like, don't relax thinking you got all these guys down, because the Rams can still move the ball up and down the field. Now, I will say this. Rollis Gannon, Rollis calling the plays, 40% blitz rate last week. They're going to try to heat Matt Stafford up, and I would too, because they don't have a lot of rushers. Last year, they heated him up probably like quarter of the time. This is a chance, if I'm John Gannon, to come in there and motivate your team to do something that you wouldn't have thought possible. Hey, week 2, we're going to beat the Rams at home, okay? And I know you went 0 for 2 last year, and the offense sputtered in those games, but they don't have Aaron Donald, okay? Like, give us a little breathing room here, right? And this front is inexperienced. This front has not fit the run a ton. They did last week. They got a heavy dose of it. I would show them that overtime game, and I would say, hey, we're going to pick up right where the Lions left off. Because if you watch the Cardinals game, James Conner touched the ball like 6 of 8 of the first plays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this run game is multiple enough and versatile enough, and they have the commitment to it to where, listen, you don't need to gain 5 yards a pop. But if you go gap scheme and somebody's out of a gap, you stick to it. You're going to get your explosives.
Yep.
I would try to pound the ball, and I think Kyler's plenty good enough to put up 30 points on this defense. Okay? It is in Arizona. This would be an upset, but if you're the Cardinals, you got to sell this as an opportunity to say, hey, look around the division. I know San Francisco is San Francisco now, but the other 2 teams, I feel like we can beat them.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's early. McDonald, he's a rookie head coach. You got a chance to get the Rams when they're wounded. You better get them now, right? Because you could be looking up at 1-1 in this division and say, everything's in front of us. You start at 0-2, it's a lot harder. This is a huge game for the Cardinals. And I know we're going to talk about Hassan Reddick in a little bit. This is a team, in my opinion, that if they are trading Hassan Reddick from New York, or they're exploring that prospect,
Mm-hmm.
they are on my short list. There's another team, too, that we already talked about in the Bucks that I think Hassan Reddick would be attractive.
But you think trade him for players or for like capital and draft picks?
You'd have to send some capital away, right? And then the question is going to be, are you going to sign him to 1 year or do a deal? And if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, you got to start building that defense now. Like, to me, this offense is ready.
Mm-hmm.
It's ready to compete. We got to start building this defense.
Raiders could use an edge guy too.
Raiders could definitely use an edge guy.
But
Whiffing
they're not.
on my guy Tyree Wilson, who I thought was going to be good.
Shout out to Snowden getting some run. Wahoo wah.
Wahoo wah. But overall, linebackers against McBride in the pass game, that's got to be a staple. If you can get matchups with McBride, like a weakness of this Rams defense has been for the better part of 2 years now, and it looks like it'll continue to be. Like, the linebackers are not great in coverage, okay? McBride's a stud. Dortch got a lot of work last week. They love this guy, dude, and they should because, you know, he's a man beater, and he's a shifty little cat. He's going to be on Quinton Lake when they man up. Again, 9 and 14 points last year were not enough. They're going to score more. The question's going to be for me, can they stop the bleeding defensively, come up with a turnover or 2? Stafford wasn't perfect the other night. You got to pressure him. You got to bring the blitz. You have to risk giving up 6 quick so you can kill a drive.
Snitch alert. Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings host the San Francisco 49ers. Niners are 6-point favorites on the road.
Oh, yeah. Jordan Mason with the snitching.
Sam Darnold being in San Francisco was my initial thought.
Well, Jordan Mason did snitch the other night. Did you
Right.
see that?
Found out Friday.
Yeah, found out Friday. And then, like, after the game, instead of being like, yeah, I don't know what I was talking about, what they said, what I meant Friday was they said I would have an increased workload.
That's what Kyle said. Yeah.
You know, that's what I would say. And then he gets up to the podium, he's like, that's why I don't talk to y'all, man. Because I said a bad thing. And it's true. You know, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just some great coordinators and coaches in this game. Shanahan against B-Flow, but also Shanahan against Sam Darnold. You know, what's he know about him, right? You alluded to it. KOC against Sorensen. I thought Sorensen had a really nice first week. A lot of window dressing, a lot of pre-snap stuff defensively from his group where it's like, you know, late rotations, playing with Aaron Rodgers. deciding that I'm going to play chess with Aaron Rodgers a little bit on Monday night. I was like, yeah, it's going to be fun. And they were down Hufanga. By the way, I thought the Leonard Floyd edition confirmed watching him go Monday night that they're going to be better up front. Listen, Minnesota's got to survive, man. They can't make huge mistakes. They're going to be at home. Okay, so you got that going for you. I would say, hey, we beat them last year, guys. Now, they didn't have Trent. They didn't have Debo. They didn't have McCaffrey. And if you're San Francisco, you probably just put McCaffrey on ice this week, in my opinion, especially after what you saw last week. It's also good to get this guy touches in case later in the season.
If they don't lose these first games, I'd say you don't look to play him until after week 4.
Well, only Shanahan and their training staff and John Lynch, they know how serious this Achilles tendonitis is. It sounds like something they're well versed in managing with him. But
I know
if you're well versed in it,
yeah,
this does seem a little bit troublesome coming out of camp. I would just be patient.
Mm-hmm.
The only question I have is if you're Jordan Mason, who has not played a lot of football, are you ready for everything Brian Flores is going to throw at you? You know what I mean?
I think
in pass protection. I'm talking about pass protection now. Like, I would try to find ways to check this kid's chin in pass protection. I don't mean run him over. I just mean make him process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because this is the thing that keeps some guys off the field. I don't know anything about this guy in pass protection, but I'm sure they're figuring out whether or not he can pick up a blitz, what have you, stand in there, get run over at times. Like, it's the dirty work of being a running back. And yeah, he did a lot of good things with the ball in his hand the other day, but this is this defense, you don't know what they're in.
Yeah.
You don't know who's coming. And, you know, they just got to win matchups like Metellus on Kittle. You know, they got to win a matchup like who's going to play on Ayuk, you think?
I figure it's going to be Gilmore.
So Stephon Gilmore's got to win the matchup. I mean, like, there's just matchups you have to win. And if you can stop the run and get to third down, I do think they can confuse this group on third down. Like, this will be a tougher third down test to me than the one San Francisco just faced. I'm not saying they're not going to pass the test, but the test they just faced, those rushers were not getting home. And Hassan Reddick's somewhere in Japan or something. And, you know, you lose John Franklin Myers and you lose Bryce Huff. That was apparent to me when they could get off the field, it felt like hopeless. So do you see Debo in the backfield, right? Like, when Debo's in the backfield, we saw last week, it was just so difficult imagining being in, you know, Quincy Williams' shoes or, you know, Mosley's shoes when Debo's split out behind the tight end, basically, and he's going to run an angle route at you, and you can't get beat to the sideline because he might run a wheel or something, and you can't overrun it because the angle route's the thing that's really dangerous, you know? And boy, he looks like a running back. Like, he really does. If you could clone him, it'd be incredible. But I just think it's Devondre Campbell. Find some matchups on him if you can. You'd like to be able to say, hey, Aaron Jones out of the backfield, good option for us. But Fred Warner looms.
Aaron Jones did look good last week.
Fred Warner is the most looming-ass dude in the NFL. Like, he's just around, dude.
Plays like a man possessed.
There's no way to get away from him.
Nope.
Like, I sit here and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to get a matchup on Devondre Campbell, but, you know, Fred's right there too, and I'm sure Sorensen's going to do a good job of trying to limit those opportunities for them to get away from.
If you're a young linebacker and you want to know how to play linebacker and what it means to be able to run from sideline to sideline, he is the definition of that.
Yeah, but you can't show young linebackers that tape. They're going to get a false sense of like how they're going to run and the athleticism that they're capable of playing with. This guy's one of one, dude. And so you got to know where he is. You got to try to get away from him if you can. But again, this team beat him at home last year, and I thought Sam Darnold really looked good.
Against a really good defense.
Supposedly. I mean, he threw Jefferson open. The touchdown nailer was beautiful. We said this coming in. There's going to be a competency at quarterback that he had not enjoyed for much of last year. and a little bit more mobility too. If Kirk came back, how handcuffed would you be off an Achilles? So this is the best possible scenario outside of them having two to choose from. They really did stick the landing on bringing in a veteran quarterback who I think is going to give them some good downs. Now, this weekend, it's going to be it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But you're at home. You beat them last year. There's hope you can sell this team. You have to pressure Purdy. You have to. You brought in all these guys. Okay, you got to find a matchup on McKivitz. You got to be able – I don't care if Purdy's good against the blitz. Spags did a good job last year in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I know it's Spags, but you can figure out some things, B-Flow. You got to recreate some of that. And for Minnesota, it's nice to have two damn good tackles a week like this, right? That's one thing when you look at Minnesota's chances of playing a pass rush unit like this. Darisaw, O'Neal, good players, man. They're going to be some fun matchups to watch on the edge.
In true road games, Kyle Shanahan is 8-2 against the spread with the Niners on short rest, covering the spread by an average of 7 points per game.
And they're leaning. Now, the one thing I think about is that was a physical game the other night. Mm-hmm. Giants played the Vikings in the early slot. It was over before it started. It felt like
untaken, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, hand up.
Hey, Chris versus Nate. How old is Sam Darnold?
26.
The correct answer is 27.
Nice. Ooh. Okay, so early game. It's over before it started. I mean, same thing could be said for San Francisco, but they played Monday night, and they did have to pound the rock to win, and they didn't go away from it. So I don't know, if there is an attrition with that sort of thing. I mean, they were on the field for a long time offensively. Minnesota, you brought these edge rushers in. You got to get pressure. And B-Flow can't be afraid to heat them up.
Sunday Night Football is a fun one. Two young teams. Houston, 6.5-point favorites at home against the Chicago Bears.
That's right. That's
CJ
right.
Stroud and Caleb Williams.
Injuries, man. Bears without Odunze and Allen today. If they're out, if one of them's out, it makes it a little easier to spend a little bit more attention on DJ Moore, who actually got after Snead, my guy, a little bit last week. I was pretty impressed by that. I mean, Snead didn't have his best game. Another injury is DeMarcus Walker, and you've got to be able to rush this guy. You got to be able to affect CJ Stroud. You got to be able to stop the run. I think that was a revelation for Houston last week. Look at them last year, look at them this year. Mixon adds an element. I think Mixon's going to be one of those guys that you're like, how are you better? I thought Cincinnati put you in the best position to succeed. But actually, I think in the multiplicity of what they do in the run game with Houston, if week one's going to be any indicator, he's going to get the ball a lot of different ways. A lot less gun run, for one. I love seeing him with a full head of steam. The Bears have to be ready to stop the run and to pressure CJ Stroud. Schultz didn't practice this Wednesday. That could be a big break for the Bears. But Bears D, you're going to have to be great. Last week, the special teams and one play, that is not a sustainable way to win, right? So you've got to play better on defense. You have to play better offensively. And I'll say this, Caleb Williams, the number one thing you got to do if you're the Bears is not ruin this guy's head 2 weeks into the season. So I don't care if you walk into this game and you're like, hey, quick game might not get it done against these guys. The run game might not get it done against these guys. Well, I don't care because it's week 2 of this kid's rookie career, and he's coming off a game where he quite frankly looked bad. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't think he's bad. I think he's got something special about him. But you might never see that if the guy's shell-shocked 6 weeks into his rookie year, okay? It wasn't like the rush was everywhere, but that offensive line struggled. And people in Chicago, Bears fans and people that put him in the Hall of Fame because of the preseason are like, well, the one thing we didn't count on was, man, his offensive line sucks. I'm like, welcome to being a rookie quarterback. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of guys have a group in front of them that's ready-made. What you do have is you got some weapons outside, and you'd like to think if you could scheme them up to get open in the quick game, Like, you can get going. That's the way I would. That's the way. And when you get a shot, take it, hit it. And they're looking at the film of Stingley last week. Stingley didn't have his best game. Eyes somewhere else. I mean, fucking Anthony Richardson went bombs over Baghdad, man. He just did. And when you're a safety, like, you got to be puckered up this week. So I don't think you're going to get those deep shots. I think it's going to be a thing where Houston tries to keep things in front of them. Their D-line has to eat, and I think they will. Because listen, top to bottom, this might be a better group than the group you just saw. Like, I love Jeffrey Simmons. I think Landry's a beast. I think there's other guys on that group I like. But when you look at Hunter, you look at some of the other pieces they have, I mean, like,
Will Anderson.
Will Anderson. They're a little bit more evenly distributed, and the edge guys are going to be better. So I think this is a bigger test, honestly, for that offensive line. The way they pass it is if you get the ball out of this kid's hands, don't wreck his confidence. Like, I don't know. It's kind of an abstract thing that nobody can say for sure what's going on in this kid's head. But I can tell you as a football player, it is a very mental game. And I can only imagine being a rookie quarterback. You know, you can project all the confidence you want, but that tape was bad. Okay. And I think that was the most anticipated rookie start since
maybe ever.
Really, because every year the anticipation is greater because we get more and more adept at drilling down on a single fucking story. This kid, it was like you would think there was no other rookies in this class. You know, he cannot be ruined mentally. He's going on the road. It's a Sunday night football game. If Houston gets out on top, they're not going to blow a 17-point lead. They're not going to blow a 17-point lead. So just keep things. I mean, Coleman, Shelton, Nate Davis, they struggled. You gotta go quick. You gotta get the damn ball out. And everything with him can't be a fastball. I don't know if you noticed that last week. He's got to take something off of some of these balls.
Yeah.
You know, I know you got a strong arm. You don't have to come out there week one and prove it. You certainly don't have to do it week two. We all know. We saw college tape. Just settle in. Settle in, big guy.
Big jersey matchup. All white for Houston and all orange for the Bears.
Really? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
That's kind of gross.
That's terrible.
And I'm wondering what color nail polish goes with all orange?
Orange.
Orange.
Orange on orange, though? All of it?
Yeah.
Blue. It's the other color in the fucking uniform. You know?
The Texans.
You guys said that like you wear nail polish. Like,
no, but
guys.
I do.
The Texans were one of 4 teams not to have a primetime game last year.
Yeah.
Now, how can primetime benefit a young team, 2 young teams, and how can it work again?
I think it's going to benefit the Texans. You know, that's a great point you just made. They didn't have any primetime games last year. Surprise, surprise. Nobody thought they were going to be good. But this is a difficult challenge. You know, like hosting or being on the road I think it's even harder at home at times because there's more time in your city, you know, more things that you could be going to do. Like, even though you're at the hotel, you could leave the hotel for a while, a little bit one day. Like, I used to, for a night game, wake up in the morning, smoke, and go back to sleep as long as I could. You know what I mean? Because I just didn't want to be in the room. I don't want to be awake for this anguish of like, just wanted to explode, man. You know what I mean? And then the best part of the whole primetime thing is when you walk down to the bus because you're just like, finally, we get to go. That's a lot of waiting around. And I think the spot is something, as you mentioned, that they haven't been in from a pressure standpoint. This is something they got to get used to doing because where they plan to go, they're going to play at night. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? And for Caleb Williams, playing on the road in a hostile environment in a primetime game is something you have to experience to know what it's like. Yeah. And I'm not talking about going to Utah, which is supposedly a tough place to play. I'm talking about an NFL stadium where you look outside and Derek Stingley's up there and Hunter's lined up at left end, and, you know, like Azeez Al-Shaair can track some of these errant balls down a lot better than the guys last week did. The fact that he got out of there with no picks, I think this week, if they get down, it could get ugly.
After that preview, Nate disclosing the color of the terrible uniform matchup, I think this is an under, despite what you might hear in a little bit later in the show. 45.5 points. It's 27-10 Texans.
I could see that. Did you take the under later in the show?
I went over.
So he's hedging.
I screwed up.
I screwed up.
Okay, well, then I'd like to throw this whole next preview out the window.
I screwed up.
Because and the Bears were a team that was mentioned as like Hassan Reddick destination as well. I do think they could use a little bit more pass rush.
Quick question for night games for a player. How did you manage eating before the game and like not being hungry? That game starts at, you get on the field on your way to the night game, maybe what, like 5:30 the buses start heading over, or 3 hours?
Oh, yeah, like I'd take the late bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you eat then, you realistically, if you don't eat again, it's not until the game's over. If the game might go till midnight.
You're always hungry after those games. I used to go home and just murder food. I would DoorDash. I'd get whatever was open. It'd be 5 pounds of food coming to the door. Because, you know, like at 5 o'clock, you go try to get a hearty dinner, like an early dinner, but you don't want to eat so damn much that you feel like a blob out there. I don't want to feel like me in 2010 going to San Francisco. I went to this bachelor party in New Orleans, didn't shit for a week. I was out there with a Keurig in the tank. Shout out to South Park. Getting ready to try to sack Troy Smith. I'm full of shit. Okay, like bloating is a real thing, and you want to look good in your uniform.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean too.
Yeah,
you know, especially if you're going all white or something like that. You're at home. You know, if I'm Juice Scruggs or something, I'm thinking twice about what's for dinner.
That's so funny.
You know,
the Chiefs, rather the Bengals, are in Burrowhead as 6-point dogs after a really terrible showing in Week 1 against New England Patriots.
I blame the mayor.
Is there a mayor bet?
The Cincinnati mayor. Remember that whole thing? I blame him, like for everything that's happened to this organization since he did that.
Yeah.
I mean, they were at a point at one time, the Bengals, where they were bold enough to talk shit to Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
You got to prove that you belong. You do. You can't live off one win. You can't live off the time you dropped 8. You know, you got to go in here and beat them. And you do, because you can't start 0-2. I know you do it every year, but this year it's got to be fucking different. And if you're the Bengals, I'm looking at that tape last week, and I'll just say this. I don't think they got mauled defensively, but they got to tackle better. And Cam Taylor-Britt, the first person I saw pop up on my timeline today with a quote was he. And it was, I'll paraphrase it.
Right. Yeah.
Xavier Worthy's not, he just runs straight.
He's fast, yeah.
He just runs straight. Okay. All right. I saw him, dude. I saw it in real time. I don't know if you were watching that game.
Bulletin board
or if you were getting some sleep. Yeah, if I was Xavier Worthy, I'd just come out running in zigzags in preseason or in pregame.
In pregame,
like
Apocalypto style.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like Apocalypto. But the whole thing is, if I'm Cincinnati, there is hope to sell. Okay, like you had a chance to take control of that game last week. Not every NFL win is going to be pretty, right? We see it every year. Like a Super Bowl contending team eking out a win, right? The Chiefs lost the Raiders last year. No crazy shit happened, really, other than they made mistakes and the Raiders came to play, and they did it at Arrowhead. Okay, this Bengals team last year went to Arrowhead and damn near won with Browning. Okay, so I'm just proving a point that sometimes we judge the result, and 1 or 2 plays might change the outcome of that game last week. And so if I'm the Bengals, I'm saying, hey, if Tanner fucking gets in the end zone, it's 7-7. You don't think we go win that game, guys? Be serious, okay? The places we've been, the guys we have in this locker room. You gonna tell me we're not a better team than them? I know their defense is good, but guys, wake the fuck up. As soon as the alarm clock goes off, we're gonna look like a team that's gonna make a deep run. And you were on that team less than 6 months ago that took Kansas City to the wire at Arrowhead, and they weren't playing well at that point. But if I was Cincinnati, that's the hope you got to sell. Is like, listen, we're down Higgins, maybe. They might be down Hollywood Brown, okay?
Higgins was out again today.
He was out again today.
Golly.
Okay?
My fantasy team.
But, they got Xavier Worthy, only runs in a straight line. I didn't say that. Cam Taylor-Britt said it. I don't agree. I don't want to see him running a zigzag. That looks dangerous, probably, too. But we have Jamar Chase. They got Rashee Rice. They got Travis Kelce. We got Jamar Chase.
Sort of,
yeah.
That was
off schedule.
A weird thing.
I think more than anything, they're rusty because of the not having the guy. That whole offense centers around having those guys outside. And if Jamar is fucking talking about his contract the whole month of August and whether he's not going to play up until the game,
and
Higgins is out.
How much is he giving? How hard is he really playing right now if he's upset?
Jamar Chase also just a little while ago said, we're the team to beat in the AFC. We need to act like it, and we need to play like it.
Yeah, there's part of me that's like, hey, when are you going to get pissed off? If you're the Bengals, when are you going to show up and get fucking pissed off in the month of September? Like, we're the guys that are going to, come out and make a play and, slap the shit out of your teammate in the helmet and fucking push people around and just get a little energy. That team was so flat last week.
Maybe it's DJ Reader.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson's going to be playing a rookie in Kingsley. You want to do the last name?
No, BYU.
Suamateia from BYU. Did I get it right? I think Trey Hendrickson on Kingsley Suamateia is one of the biggest – you would say it one more time. It's one of the biggest matchups of the whole damn game. So maybe it's Trey Hendrickson, who got a lot of pressure last week and didn't get home.
Big Trey.
You got to put out the fire in the run game. You better believe if Gerard Mayo and Alex Van Pelt can figure out a way to run the ball for however many yards they did last week and convert on all those third downs, Andy Reid with a mini bye is going to have some answers for you. I'm looking at the offense and I'm saying, y'all got to find a way to be aggressive. If you got to go empty, go empty. If Lou Anarumo defensively has to drop 8, he has the DB depth to do that this year, then you got to do that, whatever it demands. But what you can't do is just come out and stick to that same fucking script, that pedestrian pace, that lack of aggression that I saw on offense. Like, I want to see some physicality too. I know their run schemes aren't that. The scheme can sometimes keep you from being physical. You might have physical players, but the scheme can keep you from being physical. So you lose Joe Mixon. That is one of the most apparent things about this offense. Like,
we like to say they're all interchangeable, but that looked a lot different with Moss and Brown.
It looks a lot different. So I'm looking for somebody like Gesicki to step up. I'm looking for Yoshivas to step up. I'm looking for Irwin to step up. If you can get your matchups on the backers, like if you spread them out, then I think you got a good shot. But you have to win inside, and then Jamar Chase has to be Jamar Chase. If Jamar Chase is going to show up like last week, they're going to lose this game because Kansas City got better this year. They did. I offensively, so you're going to have to score with that team a little bit more than you might think.
I'm not gonna lie, I was looking at alternate points because just like you're saying, I think that Kansas City might beat them by 2 touchdowns or more, and I was looking at Kansas City minus 13.5 and it's only plus 240, and it's not juicy enough for me, but I still might make that bet.
You can make the bet. I don't think it's going to cash because I think Cincy's going to be better than people think this week. I'm not saying they win this game. This is Mahomes is Mahomes. We're not doing this year where every year it feels like there's some overreactive quarterback narrative. And I can remember 2 years ago, you're like, is this Joe Burrow's league? Check back 2 years later, it's Patrick Mahomes' league. And I guess my main concern is when Patrick Mahomes has got these guys outside, including Worthy, are you going to play scared? Are you going to be worried about him running by you? He can only run in a straight line, so you kind of got to hold yourself to that, Yeah. You don't want the matchups underneath that are going to kill you. You don't want, like last week, Kansas City got matchups on Roquan Smith. Kansas City got matchups on Malik Harrison. Like, it's just not – take the chances, be aggressive underneath, and make them run by you. I know I just said this guy reminds me of like a small sedan, the way he ran across the field the other night. But I'll take them hitting on 1 or 2 big plays rather than like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You know, challenge this guy. Bring some blitz. Win your rushes. So a lot on the back of Trey Hendrickson, right? He's got to really win if you want a shot.
Our mid game of the week, Indianapolis at Green Bay. Look-ahead line was Packers by 4.5. Indy's now favored by 2.5 because the Green Bay starter is Malik Willis.
So I think this is going to be an interesting game. This is one of those games where it's like 2 great offensive coaches. One of them is trying to build a quarterback who's got like otherworldly talent. Like he was touched by God. Like God was like, Bink. You're going to be able to throw the ball 70 yards. Yeah. If you can just figure out how to hit the check down and on 4th and 1, not hit the mascot, like you could be anything you want to be.
God was on IG Live with Mrs. Richardson, immaculately conceiving this quarterback stalwart.
That's good because the arm strength is incredible. I mean, I'm not saying anything you didn't know, but when you take into account 3 50-yard bombs, like otherwise 6 of 16, 41 passing yards, 2.6 yards per attempt. So it's going to be a project with this guy. But the wow plays are like nobody else can do that. The ball he threw to Doolin last week. I know we're all making a big deal about the 70-yarder. You got to watch the ball he threw to Ashton Doolin. Absolute danger bird. Just like don't do it. And then the ball's there. It's like no fucking way, man. This guy can be special. But it is going to be a work in progress. And on the other side, by the way, time of possession has got to be better for Indy. 20 minutes of time of possession? Is that a joke? With that offensive line, with the QB run game you have with Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, get the defense.
What is that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that? And part of that is this guy's got to make throws to keep you on the field.
Yeah.
But this offense should be able to say, hey, we want 3rd and 3 here. We're going to go get 3rd and 3 in 2 plays.
Yeah.
You know, if we want 3rd and 2, we're going to go get 3rd and 2 in 2 plays. Like that's what kind of offense this should be. It's a nightmare to prepare for a guy like this.
And teams to hold 25 minutes of possession or less in week 1 are 8 and 23 straight up and 6 and 25 against the spread in their week 2 game.
I'm telling you, Green Bay might be the play here. Green Bay might be the play. We'll talk about it when we get to locks.
Is it too early to say must win for either of these teams? I mean, Indy playing against a backup quarterback, and you starting off 0-2. You gotta.
If Indy loses this game, they're gonna look back at this one and be sorry. You know, I think on Green Bay's side, they're the ones that have the tall task, right? Although the game's at home and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Buckner is questionable. You know, that's not insignificant. So that's some good news for Green Bay. But this is a Malik Willis game.
Yeah.
Okay? There's no like, hey, yeah, if they do this, if they do that. This guy has got to exploit the biggest weakness on the field or the biggest matchup advantage that you have, Green Bay does offensively, and that's the guys outside. Juju Brents just went down. He's on IR. Okay? Yeah, the guy that they're going to bring up is – I think they're going to bring up the guy he beat out last year.
Yeah, Dallas Flowers.
Obviously, they like Juju Brents better, but the guy has some experience. He got hurt, got Wally pipped, if I remember that correctly. But
I think we're going to see a lot of scrambling.
The bottom line is these guys outside you have, they can win. And, you know, nobody in the league, very few guys in the league, do a better job than Matt LaFleur pre-snap. I think he does a great job scheming things up. They use motion really well. Not nobody in the league. They're up there. And if you got a new corner in the lineup this weekend, increase the window dressing, increase the motion. You know, and the question is, can Malik Willis run an offense where he just got here with all the moving parts? I mean, he just got here, but they do like him. They brought him in. When they brought him in, everybody's like, what are you doing? When I saw that Hail Mary the other night that he never got off, I was like, what are you doing? But here I am thinking about betting the Packers because Matt LaFleur is a good coach, man. He's worked with athletic quarterbacks before. He worked with RG3. I think he'd tell you the spot starts that Jordan Love had, he didn't do a good job there. Can he do a better job giving this Malik Willis kid a game plan that he can follow? The quarterback run game has to be a thing. You know, it was. I would go back and look at Tennessee when they played Kansas City on the road and went to Arrowhead, and I think damn near beat them. They covered for sure. I think it was a 13-point spread, and that thing came down to the wire because that's a Mike Vrabel spot. Maybe this is a Matt LaFleur spot. We'll find out. But I think the quarterback run game, getting the ball to these playmakers in space. Wicks didn't have a good game down in Brazil. I'd like to see him get the ball, get him out of that funk. And Jaden Reed is like WR1. Yeah. And that's in a room with future Hall of Famer Romeo Doubs. Future fantasy football Hall of Famer Romeo Doubs, one of these years.
As a rusher, how does playing a backup quarterback affect your mindset? What will a backup do that is
okay, that's a good question.
Well, he's different.
I think when you're playing Jordan Love, would I rather play Malik Willis or Jordan Love? I'd probably rather play Jordan Love as a rusher because in that scenario, well, my team could win the game. But if you're talking about rushing, Jordan Love is going to drop back and throw the ball more times than Malik Willis is. If Malik Willis is going to throw the ball 25, 30 times this game, you lost. So you're not going to get as many opportunities. I think there might be more play action. There might be more QB run. There might be more max up type stuff. There might be some spread quick game. It really is a mystery. And, you know, like for me, I look at Matt LaFleur and I say, like, what have you chefed up for this guy? I think it's interesting to think about, like, do they have a game plan for this scenario as soon as the season starts? Like,
I think as soon as you trade for him.
Yeah, well, I think you should. I think you should be huddling as an offense like before week 1 and saying, like, what's our game plan if the unforeseen happens? And it's not as easy as being like, well, Sean Clifford's been here or whoever the fuck it is. Yeah, it's a new guy.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I think, like you were saying earlier, like there'll be a lot of stuff in there for him where it's, hey, after the first read, if you don't see it, tuck it and get 2-3 yards plus if you can.
Yep.
And I think we're gonna see that. And he's athletic, and maybe he can break a few of those. And
what he also has is a fucking RPG on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And to me, like, in games like this, taking a shot a couple times a quarter, I don't hate that. Yeah. You know, like, fucking throw it out the window, man. You got Malik Willis starting. The one thing he can do is throw the ball very far. Okay, now I hate to oversimplify it, but, you know, the Colts are banged up in the secondary. If they drop one coverage, he's got to hit that ball. Because this could be a game that's 2017. It could be 17-14. It's going to be a physical game. Indy is going to have to block that front. And if I'm Green Bay front, I'm saying we can win this game. You know, this guy's got some great highlight reel stuff, but if we rally to him, he's going to throw us the ball. We can take the ball off him.
1:00 kick in Baltimore. Ravens are 8.5-point favorites over the Las Vegas Raiders. If Jim Harbaugh, Chris, was in the business of truly helping out his brother John this week, what kinds of things could he tell him that would actually be useful? Vegas and Chargers tussled last week.
I think if Jim was calling John, this is where it gets confusing to me because it's Jim, John. It's like basically Jack. The same fucking name. Yeah. It's like, what's up with the J's with these Harbaughs?
Yeah.
JH.
So, yeah, like all the towels.
JH.
They're just sharing towels.
Clint Kubiak's brothers, Clay and Klein.
Do me a favor. Never buy me towels with my initials on them. I'm not going to use them. I don't want initials on my towel.
For those keeping track, that's KKK for the Kubiak children.
Are you serious?
Well, yeah, I am. I mean, they have different initials than that, but they have 3 children with names starting with the letter K. What do you want me to do about that?
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, you didn't think that one through. Maybe a little play action, you know? Okay, so we're talking about the Harbaughs on the phone. I think Jim would say,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it at all. You're laying 9.5. I think you beat him by 17. I think the Ravens get right here. I really do. Now Minshew beat the Ravens last year. That doesn't look like the same group he's playing with. It's not the same offensive coach. If you remember, the Ravens kind of beat themselves a little bit in that game early in the season, but I just think they looked hapless. You know, that offense just does not look like it's – this could be a bad offense if they ever trade Davante Adams. Wow. Everybody left on that offense deserves like a fucking raise or another Social Security check when they get older or something, because this is going to be hell. If Davante Adams walks at some point via trade, listen, if I'm Luke Getsy, and I thank the good Lord that I am not Luke Getsy. I had a teacher that used to say, if I was you, and I thank the good Lord that I am not you. Same thing with Luke Getsy. I scheme up matchups with linebackers for Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers. That's the only way. Now, the Chiefs did it with Rice. I don't anticipate you're going to be able to do it with as much effectiveness, but that's it. You know, the Raiders press pool got leaked this week, talking about how bad Minshew was and like how they're going to get killed this weekend.
Hot Mike.
When you hear that, those people know what's going on in the building, right? Like they were not confident. And hey, if you shock the world, then you can stick a fork in the Ravens. Ravens fans, I love you. I love you guys.
Defense and special teams.
But you guys are the one fan base that would probably be mad if I said, if you get beat by the Raiders, you're probably not good. And well, what the fuck do you mean if we get beat by the Raiders, we're not good? He was an MVP last year. Just take care of business, okay? Right this ship, okay? I think the Ravens are a good football team. They didn't play their best ball week 1, but they do have deficiencies. The deficiencies to me are up front on the offensive line. You know, Kyle Van Noy's down. I don't think you're going to need him. I think these rushers can get after the quarterback. They just need some time away, Ajabo. I'm waiting for them to come on. You had some moments last week. I think they're going to have chances to pin their ears back. This is a really good game for a front to gain some confidence. You know, Clowney walks out the door. You still got Matabike. You got those two guys I mentioned. You got Kyle Van Noy. He's in sunglasses like Stevie Wonder. I want to know who can rush on this group. This is a good weekend to find out because you're going to have a lead if things are going correctly. And I wouldn't be trying to shorten the game, okay? I would be trying to run your offense, you know, and get Max Crosby blocked. That's the one thing that can wreck the game for you. But I think this has got to be a situation where you're the Ravens, you come in and you're the Ravens, right? But do not just try to bury the ball behind the guard the entire game. Because if you play a game like that and you can't get the run game going, which is a possibility because of the front, then you could end up in one of these sloppy games that you're accustomed to giving away. I come out and I try to jump this team, take their soul. I come out and try to put up 14 in the first quarter. That's what I try to do if I'm the Ravens. And they got to be a lot sharper. They got to get Isaiah Likely the ball. They got him the ball like 10 times last week. Make it 20.
Yeah.
You know?
Be great.
Because the other guys are not dependable right now. You know, Mark Andrews is a stud, but I don't trust Zay Flowers yet. I don't yet. Who else you got outside? But you got to go. You can't. You got to find out who you can. It's like finding out who can rush. I want to find out who I can depend on in the passing game. And part of that's going to be the offensive line's got to take care of Crosby, but they also have to learn how to play together. They lost their offensive line coach in the offseason. Guy passed away. Been coaching a long time. This is a group that was going to need help. They replaced 3 people. This is going to be a work in progress. I'm not saying air it out 60 times, but I want to find out who can play.
Teams that blew a 10-plus point lead in week 1 are 29-17 straight up.
I have the same thing. Are we talking about?
In week 2 since 1990, the Titans.
The Tennessee Titans.
This number is floating between 3.5 and 4. Jets are favored in Nashville.
I think one thing to look at with this game is there are going to be some matchups that Tennessee feels good about outside. Like, I feel okay about Snead and Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson's fantastic, but you know how I feel about L'Jarius Snead, and he's got a real physicality about him that I think is going to be fun to see in that matchup. Awuzie, those guys like Mike Williams, he's on a milk carton. Haven't seen him much. Like they didn't even barely target him for a guy that like a third of the offseason narrative was Mike Williams. It was like, hey, we brought in Tyron Smith, we brought in Mike Williams. We brought in Hassan Reddick. Holy shit, one guy's in Japan, one guy you don't even look his way. And then the other guy got beat a couple times the other night. Like, no surprise. It's Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd and those guys. But all that window dressing. And all of a sudden, it's like, we got to go prove that we can win. And I think from what I saw from Aaron, I worry about the mobility. But as far as his arm's concerned, nothing's changed. The balls I saw the other night were pretty damn good. I worry about the footwork. I worry about him being able to step up in the pocket, evade the rush, that sort of thing. And this week, like, you're going to see Jeffrey Simmons, and, you know, they got some good rushers, but I do think the run game probably works a little bit better. Like, I didn't know what – one thing I never know what Nathaniel Hackett's doing, but I definitely didn't know why they tried to run the ball the way they did the other night. Like, again – just heavy zone scheme. It was like banging your head against the wall. Mm-hmm. They were just blowing up plays in the backfield. They're too fast. Okay? This group's not as fast. This group's not as physical. But this group's good on the back end. So you're going to have to run the ball, right? And I actually think this is a game that could be close and low scoring. I do. Because I think if I'm the Titans – I look at that tape and say, you got to put that fire out in the run game. We're not going to let you off the hook. We were running at the Bears for much of the game before we put it in Will Levis's hands. And Will Levis, my brother in Christ, you can be Brett Favre with your legs all you want, but not with your arm. Let's save the circus throws for like somewhere else. Down the line, maybe.
Belichick had a great comment on it on one of his podcasts or whatever he was on. He said, me and Tom would talk about this throw. Don't ever attempt it because the payoff is a yard or two. And the worst thing is a pick six the other way.
It's a yard or two. And you have to know where you are. You know, you are up at that point.
It was 17-16.
It was 17-16 at this point. The Titans got the big. Here's the thing. Okay, I'm going to paint a picture for you. Just put you in a football player's head. They're playing in Chicago, right? The game was in Chicago. I was paying so much attention to Caleb Williams, I forgot where it was. Playing in Chicago. You've been up 17-0 for like the whole game. They just blocked a punt, made it 17-10. Now it's 17-16. There's no distance. It felt like just a minute ago that the place erupted. The roof has come off the place. Okay, like it is roofless. The place is about to explode. Like, if it explodes again, you're dead. That's the rule. The place can't explode twice in a 5-minute period. Like, when that happens, you just get on the bus and go home. Punt the ball. Live to fight another down. Punt the ball. Pin the Bears, who have not scored on offense all day long. It's pretty simple. Take a sack, throw it away. I'll let you decide. Run around with your head cut like a chicken with your head cut off for 3 yards. Get blasted. Somebody, like, pick the grass out of your fucking face mask. I don't care what you do. Hit Virginia McCaskey in the temple with the football. I don't care. Just don't do that, dude. Your team was gifted. You earned it. But you were gifted a 17-point lead because this kid's not ready to play, and the Bears aren't ready to play. You're going to need every win you can get in this league. I don't know if you noticed this. You're not the Chiefs. Take the sack, punt the football, trust your defense. If I'm on defense when that happens, I'm pissed at Will Levis. Now, I got love for Will Levis because I think he's tough. I think he fights, and the guys seem to like him. But I was pissed at Will Levis. I had Titans plus 4.5. You can kind of tell here, sitting here. But really, though, I thought Denard's group did a great job. Cash that in, man. That's part of your team's identity. If you know thyself, you shall not feel the result. Hold on. Mike Waffle used to say this to us. Is Sun Tzu. All these coaches quote
War.
Sun Tzu. They all fucking think they could be generals because they know how to fit like counter. Okay. Not the same. And you got to be wary of these guys that like read The Art of War just walking around. Like everything's a fucking contest to these guys. You know what I mean? Is there somebody like that in this room?
No.
You closet Art of War guy?
No, I've never read it.
But I can tell. I can tell, pussy. But honestly, dude, know thyself and know thy enemy, and you shall not fear the result of 1,000 battles. Mike Waffle used to say that to us, and we'd have to finish it and say 1,000 battles at the end like a fucking Boy Scout troop.
Like you're in church.
No, like he's a Marine, so he's like, but it's true. If you know who you are as a team and you know who you are as a player, you stay out of the shit that makes you look bad, and you just stick to the script. In the NFL, you can win a lot of games.
1,000 battles.
1,000 battles.
Okay.
All right,
Funny
so
you
when
guys said that all the time because it's 100 battles, but
we said 1,000 and it was wrong?
yeah.
What the fuck, Mike Waffle? So when I say, hey, know thyself, know thy enemy, you shall not fear the result of
100
battles.
Mike Waffle's going to kill you guys. All right. Anyways, the whole point is don't do that shit.
Hey.
Don't do that shit, Will Levis. And get Quinnen Williams blocked for fuck's sake. He's going to be lined up over Radins. But he got pressure at left end last week. And Skoronski and Latham got to play better. All that hype. Got to play better. I want to see you guys on some deuce blocks. I don't want to see low lights so you guys getting beaten pass pro.
They allowed 10 pressures combined.
No bueno.
If you're Woody Johnson, Jets lose 0-2. The coach falls to 18-35 overall. That's 33% of his games won. Do you go to the quarterback and say, hey, we got the right guy? Do we start to have that conversation?
Well, I don't know because the quarterback brought in his guy, and I don't know if I trust his guy. You know, like, so what do? You change the head coach, and then Ron Middleton, you did text me Ron Middleton's picture
Just perfect
in the middle of the game.
interim coach.
He's a perfect interim coach,
to get
bro.
you to the playoffs. Tight ends coach Ron Middleton.
I'd trust Ron Middleton right now looking at that
I
picture.
would go to 1,000
You
battles.
would go to 1,000
with Ron
battles for him.
Middleton.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you got Ron Middleton,
I'm just saying.
I trust this guy, Ron Middleton. I also don't like firing coaches on this show.
I know.
But I will tell you, it's disappointing. It's disappointing because Robert Saleh's defense is supposed. And if I were Robert Saleh, I'd say this: you motherfuckers have been living off a reputation that you're not earning right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can call all the plays I want, but if you can't stop the damn run, what are we doing here?
That's right.
And I know you're tired. I know you're tired of stopping the run. That's all they did last year. They've been in a perpetual state of sudden change, 4-minute mode. Like, I've been there. It drives you insane as a player. But when the cavalry finally arrives and Aaron Rodgers trots out of the fucking tunnel and stays in the game and looks like he looked at times, okay, I'm not saying he looked great. The cavalry's arrived, like, time to nut up, guys.
Nut up.
Nut up, man. Somebody's got to win a rush, too. You know, because Hassan Reddick is not walking through that door. It doesn't look like. Somebody's going to win a damn rush. And Will McDonald might be the guy that's got to win a rush. Mm-hmm. You know, Joe liked him a lot coming out. Like, I want to see the returns on that because you got to get off the field on third down here. Now, Will Levis is Will Levis. It's a little different than playing Brock Purdy in San Francisco, but this is going to be a good game. I think it is. I think it's going to be an interesting game. And we got Iron Eagle on this game. Really like that.
Yeah, I do too. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't like Iron Eagle?
Not me. The Jags are field goal favorites at Trevor Bank. And welcoming the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns. Matt, do you want to start by explaining to us what's going on with Deshaun's
Sure.
personal and professional life?
So there's a lawyer named Tony Busby who has a client who is unnamed. She alleges a sexual assault made by Deshaun Watson in 2020 when he was a member of the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson has denied this. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, the NFL will meet with Busby and also 2 other individuals that talked to this woman after the alleged assault. And he says he has a video that will be pertinent. Now, the big question here...
I swear to God, Tony, if you don't have a video, nobody's ever going to listen to you again.
Well, he's actually representing people in the submersible.
Yeah.
So he's actually
the billionaire popcorn bag.
Yeah. So Tony Buzbee can't meet with the NFL for 2 weeks because next week he's busy doing submersible work.
No
he's representing
way.
those clients as well. But in 2 weeks he'll meet with the NFL. There will be some type of investigation at that point. And then the big question is, was this potential claim disclosed in writing to the Browns in 2022 when Deshaun signed the contract? If it was not, and he was found culpable or suspended by the league, the Browns could void the remaining years and $92 million guaranteed on his contract.
And there is a discrepancy, imagine that, between what Buzbee and Deshaun Watson are saying, because Deshaun said, and the timing part's important here, as you outlined, Deshaun's like, I just heard about it today.
Exactly.
You know, and Buzbee has claims that counter that.
Yeah, he says he's been trying to get in touch with their lawyers for 10 months.
Think they changed their number? Well, listen, I said this on the show the other night, and I'll say it again. If there is a loophole, I hope Cleveland decides to punish themselves and ride this thing out, because you deserve it.
Not a dime back.
The fans don't deserve it. Now, some of the fans that have like kind of, you know, looked the other way on sexual assault so you can lift the curse, like you deserve it too. But I know there's a lot of Browns fans who never liked this thing, and I feel shitty for them because they're in the middle of it. Like, I could not imagine being a Browns fan. I couldn't imagine having the audacity to pick the Browns to win the Super Bowl or something, and then having to root for them.
Would you still be a
Jameis
Browns fan?
Winston.
If I was a Browns fan,
Like, I would have left.
it would have been hard for me. And there's a lot of people that are going to probably call me a soy boy or something like that because I don't like sexual assault.
But look, when he gets
guys-
out of here,
Like, you know what I mean? That's where we are in society now. You don't like Deshaun Watson, you fucking soy boy.
let's paint a picture of the Browns without Deshaun Watson, though. Let's like what happened last year with Flacco.
No question.
That's a good team. Like,
It is a good team.
It's a lot of outside distractions, and it's a lot of BS. And
It's a good team if they're running their offense. That's another thing. Like Deshaun, who had a 9.3 rating, he's doing that with his offensive scheme.
yeah,
You know, Stefanski, they don't even get in like two tight end sets. Like when you think about Stefanski, you think about tight ends, you think about motion, you think about under center, you think about run game. You don't think about spread it out and make it easy, right? And right now he's making it look as hard as possible. And I went into depths on this thing earlier this week. I think he's physically shot. I really do. Now, he might come out 1 week and look good. Now, I don't want you in my mentions if he looks good.
you know who's going to be in your
Because
mention?
who?
Leroy Bickers.
What the fuck is Leroy Bickers?
That's
Bigger
his
staff.
Who's that?
that Bickers. What?
Who's Leroy
Yeah.
Bickerstaff?
It is Deshaun Watson's burner, supposedly.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. He hasn't hit me up yet. But here's the whole point is he might have a good game here or there. They got some athletes. If the tackles come back, Conklin and Willis or Wills are possibly coming back here soon. And Chubb comes back, like he could have a game where he looks decent, and everybody's going to say, see, I told you so. He had that game last year too. I just don't think he has it anymore. And so if you're the Browns, ahead of this news coming down, which could come down in the next couple of weeks, like the signs could point to like we have an out. While I think they deserve every minute of this hell,
Absolutely.
they will definitely not subject themselves to that penalty. They'll try to get out of this deal, and they're still going to owe money later, right? Like, as you understand the cap, like they're going to save some cash doing this, but there's still going to be a cap hit associated with this on the back end, or no?
Yes, and the reputations of everybody involved with it is destroyed.
Oh, but it's not, because I got to be honest, and this is a rant. People don't seem to care anymore about anything. It's like, hey, if somebody's popular enough, or if the team's good enough, or if I'm tired of watching my team lose, like it doesn't matter. And that's the sad state of society. The next time something like this happens again, the only reason somebody won't do it is because of the football side of this thing, not because it was wrong. Because they weren't the only team that was doing this. Atlanta was doing this, and maybe this is karma the way they're starting out. Atlanta wanted him down in Atlanta. Who else wanted him? I mean, the disturbing thing is a couple teams would have done this. Now, it's a big win for owners because people like Jerry Jones don't want a bunch of guaranteed money given out. Mm-hmm. So this is just all around icky as fuck. Even if the Browns get out of it, all you can hope for is that this team is really lovable when he's off it, kind of like last year. Joe Flacco made you forget about it, and everybody was rooting for the Browns. Jameis might be that guy. Maybe Jameis got brought in because he's the comedic relief that makes you forget that these people are monsters for bringing this cat in.
Yep.
But I will say this, from a football standpoint, just a pure football standpoint, I think he's cooked, and I'll be really interested to see. This isn't one of those sexy breakdowns where I'm excited to see it because I want to see how a coach schemes something up. I want to see if Kevin Stefanski's like the wolf in Pulp Fiction. Like, can he clean up this mess? Like, how can you work around what I think is a guy who's a shell of his former self and got sacked more than Andrew Luck and more than Joe Burrow his first 3 years in the league and had a shoulder injury last year and a new case just dropped this week. And not for nothing, his dad passed away recently. And, you might think he's a terrible human being, but terrible people get sad when they lose people. There's a lot going on in this young man's life. And I wish somebody would have gotten to him before he did enough where people didn't care.
Yeah. And now I wonder.
But here we are.
Now I wonder, the question is, if this goes down terribly and he ends up off the team, is this the last time we see him ever play? Because
fuck yeah.
Because
if he's off the team
and then he's already not playing well enough that a team's like, you know what, maybe we should take a try. But like you're saying,
I used to love this guy. I used to think he was like the coolest thing on the field. Like, he made me and Mike Bennett miss like multiple sacks in the same play.
That Texans playoff game?
Oh,
sick.
It's unbelievable. I'll never forget where I was.
I was like Cardinal Hall.
You were at Cardinal Hall. I was on an airplane on the way to New Orleans to see Stanford Steve, who we're going to see in a little bit. But I don't know how they get out of this mess offensively. And
longest pass downfield in the first half last week was 6 yards.
Yeah, man, that's not good. Something's up with the arm there. Something's up with the body. Something's up with the mind. Okay, and I'm not going to make light of this thing. It's a serious subject off the field. I mean, but the football looks shot. And the Jags, listen, I got some good things to say about this defense coming out of week one. I know it's a disappointing game for them, but I watched that back this week, and I thought Trayvon Walker had a really great rush. I mean, like one of the better sacks I saw this weekend.
Yeah.
And Armstead is going to be a welcome addition. The thing I was most impressed by is they had some not so great matchups outside against Miami, and whoever does, right? Because those guys can go. And it's pretty terrifying to see my old teammate Ronald Darby manned up against Tyreek Hill, but they survived. You could say, hey, there were 2 shots they hit. They got 7 points out of one of the shots. The other shot they got nothing out of. And I thought more than anything, these guys came downhill and they tackled the back end. And I didn't see that all the time from Jacksonville's defense. I just want to shout out Ryan Nielsen, who's a guy not a lot of people might know about unless you're really following this stuff. He was the DC in Atlanta last year. I was hoping he went up to Philly. We ended up with Vic Fangio. I'm happy with that so far. But Nielsen coached his ass off last week. I thought him and Anthony Weaver did a good job. Weaver in the second half. Nielsen held them to a 29% success rate, whatever that means.
Through the first 3 quarters.
For the first 3 quarters. They were humming. And,
24th in the NFL.
Trevor Lawrence, man, one of the best throws in a week where I saw a lot of good throws. That throw to Brian Thomas Jr., he threw that ball with anticipation. He threw that ball with trust. He threw that ball with zip. If you can get that, Trevor Lawrence, and I thought overall he played pretty well. Christian Kirk dropped the ball that killed him. Okay, he's got to play better. Brian Thomas Jr. drew an PI on Jalen Ramsey. He got off the line and beat this guy. So there are guys that I think can make them better than they were last year, and I love seeing Tank Bigsby involved. But when you're giving him a drive, give him the whole fucking drive because ETN fumbled at the goal line. So I just look at this and I say there are injuries with Cleveland that make it hard for them to win this game. And I thought it's the inverse of last year where Jacksonville was banged up when they went to Cleveland. I think now the Browns are banged up coming to Jacksonville, and they remember that game because that's one of the games that kept them out of the playoffs. And if Doug Peterson My old ball coach wants to turn this thing around. They have to have this game. Have to have this game. And I think Thornhill being out on IR is not for nothing. You know, you talk about explosive plays and that sort of thing. Like, they've got a shot to get him. You know, Thornhill last week before he got hurt, that touchdown to Cooks in the red zone, that's on him, right? Like, you can get this Jim Schwartz defense nosy. And if you can commit to the run game, I think you're gonna have your way on the ball game, because I don't see Cleveland scoring a lot on this group. Not with Njoku out, not with Chubb out, not with Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Falcons, Panthers, and Saints, the other teams in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes once upon a time.
Saints too, huh?
3 in the NFC South, yeah. Bucks have, you know, high ground in this discussion.
He's walking by Larry Flint's Hustler in the French Quarter, and it's just like,
Larry Flint tier of games. We're going to kick it off with Seattle and New England. The Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites. 1 o'clock kick, totals 38 points.
All right, I got one thing to say to the Seattle Seahawks.
Unbeaten.
Find Keon White.
Yeah, good player.
Find Keon White. You know, Anthony Bradford had a tough game for them last week. He's just going to move up and down the line, right? Like, this is a guy that can wreck your game plan. You got to get JSN the ball. He didn't get the ball enough last week. Got to be better on third down.
You know what I call him?
What?
Jason.
Nice.
JSN. Like Jason Smith and Jigba.
That's good.
Jason.
I like the look that Matt just gave you. Like, seriously.
The joke doesn't make sense.
Well, it's not a joke.
But
None of these are jokes.
But he's looking at me like, laugh. I'm like, we did it all your other jokes. They're not all gonna land, dude.
I wasn't looking at you like laugh. I
No,
was looking at you.
You were looking at him. It's like, oh, what in the fuck? All right. Get JSN the ball. They weren't very good on third down. Like, that's one area they have to improve. And the Pats are a damn good defense. This is going to be a bit of a slugfest, I think. But I do think Seattle's going to show you more out of the gate than they did last week. And the Patriots, man, the best thing you could have done was win last week. But also, it's kind of the worst thing, because now you're paying attention to this team. And Seattle laid an egg the first half at home. This guy's hopefully going to have them ready to play. I think the veterans, hearing from them after the game, they weren't satisfied. DK Metcalf not satisfied with that performance. I think they're going to come out with their hair on fire. And, long list of injuries on Wednesday. Who's got it worse?
Seattle definitely has it worse.
Up front, too, right?
List of guys, the list of guys who didn't practice Wednesday: Kenneth Walker with an oblique, George Fant, knee, Uchenna Nwosu dealing with a knee, and then their middle backer, Terrell Dodson.
It's just a different test this week. I think the Pats, like, if the Bengals were at full strength, you'd say, hey, that's a real tough test outside. But with Christian Gonzalez, as much as they zoned up, like, they could survive, it's going to be tough. It really is. I mean, I think Geno, I'll take early season Geno over early season Joe, which is a crazy thing to say. But this is going to be a tough matchup for the Patriots and for Gerard Mayo.
Jacoby Brissett facing a fellow black quarterback who is indeed faster than him, as his coach stated last week.
Absolutely. I was racking my brain to try to find somebody. I don't know.
Is Gerard Mayo one win away from becoming the fastest coach ever to being considered tough out? You don't want to face his guy.
For sure.
Good coach, really good coach.
Now, I can't think of some other examples, but, in the history
last
of tough outs.
Last year was Antonio Pierce, right?
It was Antonio Pierce. Like, as soon as, that was like down the stretch, it was like, man, you don't want to face those Raiders.
You're going to be ready to go.
and then this year, it's like, they're going to be better.
Yep.
We just forgot the quarterback thing and the running back thing and some other things. We'll see.
We've got 2 highly respected coaches in Denver this week.
That's right.
It's Mike Tomlin and Sean Payton. The Steelers are favored by a field goal.
It's going to be a sneaky fun game.
Down to 2.5.
It's going to be a sneaky fun game.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Broncos are going to win this thing. I mean, honestly, the line moving to the Broncos makes me a little bit nervous, right? Fields is the right choice. And I'm not just saying this like hindsight 2020. You asked me 10 days ago, what would I have said? I mean, I've said it over and over again in here. And yeah, you don't get the Russ revenge game. By the way, he was the emergency quarterback Monday.
Yeah, I know.
You really cooked him.
But you guys.
Well, you're my source of information, and all you guys in the back.
No one getting the fact check.
Isn't that interesting?
It is a little interesting.
I just wanted to let you.
But yeah, I got cooked. I'm getting cooked in the comments a little bit on that.
Yeah,
but it's all good.
Yeah,
it's all good. Players fuck up.
Yeah,
but this game,
he gets cooked.
Yeah, go ahead.
Week 1 for us too,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. It's week 1 for us too. Sorry, guys. Imagine us knowing everything. That's not why you come here.
Do you take into consideration Justin Field has never played at the altitude in Denver, and Russ has?
That's an interesting thing. I mean, it probably doesn't matter so much for a quarterback. I think about position players.
A running quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's a running quarterback, every few plays. I think more about the guys that just haven't played up there before. I can remember playing up there. I didn't run the pick six back, but I was accompanying one of my buddies in New England. And I got to the fucking end zone, and I was like, we have to go back?
Go back on the field.
It was a real thing now. And if it's hot there, that's a whole nother deal. Fields is the right choice. Me and Ryan Clark were sitting there this week, and I put it this way. If somebody's asked me, why is Fields the right choice? I sat at the table, and I hate to oversimplify it, but I said, hey, Ryan, you and I are on the same defense. You and me at the lunch table. TV comes on, it's Wednesday. Justin Fields to start. Do you feel good or do you feel bad? And we both were like, I don't feel very good about that, because we've all been in defensive rooms preparing for a guy with some of these attributes. The run game, the quarterback run game, the rush lanes for the rushers. I think the offense has a more explosive ceiling if he's on the field. We saw that last week. The arm looks fine. Arms always look fine to me. It's just about processing and making the right decisions for him. And what they came into this game and said is like, hey, we're going to stay out of the middle of the field. Arthur Smith said it out loud after the game. And this is why I like Arthur Smith. He's a real fucking offensive coordinator. He's like, whoa, Justin Fields didn't complete the ball over the middle. I was like, do I have to? Like, I coached that team last year. Jesse Bates is like.
He called him Jason Bourne. He said our Jason Bourne, TJ Watt wrecked the game. Theirs didn't, referring to Bates.
He's an anomaly back there as far as like the way he tracks the ball. And he really is one of the most heady safeties in the league.
And you have Justin Simmons there too, not to, hit the Broncos. But he's got, I think he's among safeties, he has the highest interception since 2018 or 2017.
Well, yeah, because he's really tall.
He's really tall.
So they're all high.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
I just know. I mean, like, that to me is like, hey, it's game plan. We're not going to throw the ball in the middle of the field. Why are we going to put him in those spots? Like, I want to attack outside numbers. They got after A.J. Terrell. And I think the PS2 Pickens matchup is going to be, like, fun.
So Tomlin has been on record saying before that a starting quarterback cannot lose his job to injury. They had said that Russ was a starter before the season. Like, do you think?
Yeah, but he didn't. I don't think it matters. Coaches will tell you this. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't, because it really, like, in this circumstance, does he want to win worse or stick to his guns? It doesn't matter what he said. The truth is, right now, I think you look at this offense, and he fits the ethos of what this franchise is supposed to be about. He fits more importantly the identity this offense can have. Like it's Najee Harris to the face. 5-6 times in a row, and then it's like QB run, or hey, we're going to take a shot here, play action, we're going to move the pocket. Like, for a defensive lineman, this sucks. This is cheeks. Playing the Steelers is cheeks.
Yeah.
If he can make the right decisions, and I thought he did last week, and the ball he threw to George Pickens on the left sideline. I've said it 5 times this week. Go watch it. Okay? Like, that was a beautiful throw. I would say it was the top 10 throw in the week. Okay? He's got the arm talent. He's got the physical attributes. Now we're seeing him with a real offensive coordinator. And Luke Getsy, not saying he's working with a full deck in Vegas, that's what you're looking at before. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to see Justin Fields with this offense. And I love the fact that Tomlin just knows how to coach a game, dude.
Yep.
You know, sometimes he frustrates us. But at the end of the game, they took that shot. And they hit it. The game was over as soon as Boswell was inside the 40-yard line because that put the game to 18 points. Now, you could have set up 15-10, let's just run the ball and put it all on our defense. But I love the fact that they took an opportunity, took a shot, and they got a shot before the half to steal 3 points. Right now, the training wheels are on this kid in Pittsburgh, and that's the way it should be. But as soon as he earns a little bit more leash, I think they could be fun. I really do. I'm not saying like they're an AFC championship game type team or even a playoff team at this point. I want to see this thing play out. But let me tell you something about this defense. It's fucking scary. It can be scary playing this defense. And if you're Bo Nix, who I think could be a fine player one day, and I think Sean Payton's a great coach, and I trust him. But I also trust my eyes, and right now he's a check down merchant. You know who's going to pick a ball off Sunday? TJ Watt.
No.
He's going to be in the passing windows. I'm just telling you, I bet you he comes. What kind of odds you want to give me?
Not good ones. I just need my Broncos season-long win total to get some traction, bro.
TJ Watt, by the way, if he has 2.5 sacks this weekend, he's in the 100-sack club. I mean, that
surpasses DeMarcus Ware.
He'd be the second fastest to ever reach 100 sacks. I think.
Second fastest player to reach 100 career sacks since 1982.
And I can guarantee you, look at a lot of those names that reached 100 sacks, very few of them played the game. Every corner of the game, he plays at an elite level.
How many did you finish with?
70. You know what I'm saying?
Go back and get 30.
I thought about it. I used to think I wanted 100 sacks. Then I got hurt in the prime of my career for 2 years. I was like, well, that's not going to happen. You know, it's like, but that's a number that we all chase, right? And very few guys get there. And when guys get there this quickly, it's like
bucket.
And then when you look at the way he does everything else, Atlanta just ran the ball away from him last week.
And he was still chasing.
I dropped
down
the bottle
tackles.
cap. They ran the ball away from him last week. He's still chasing. He makes plays on the ball.
And he had 2 come off the board? 1 or 2? At least,
Bro, his get off is insane. And this is what we talked about inside this week because I had to do a pass rush cut up thing with Bill, which was awesome. You'll see it Friday night on CW. I'm up there holding a fucking clicker with Bill.
Nice.
I'm like, well, how did we end up here?
Yeah.
Besties.
You know what I'm saying?
Besties.
It's like good karma for being in the wrong place for a lot of my career. Now I'm like, I get to work next to Bill Belichick.
Hell yeah.
And we broke down TJ Watt. And the thing about TJ Watt that I don't think people understand is for all the great handwork, and he might be the best technician in the league, is he's also the best at the top of the rush. There are very few guys, period, that can turn when you get to the top of the rush, flip your hips, sink a rip. His rip is intentional, it's useful, and he can turn that inside toe 90 degrees. There's not a lot of guys who can do that. Until he can't do that, he's going to be good for 15 a year. So he's at 100. A fun conversation is where do you think he ends up? I think he's got a shot at like 160. Who's
that might be low.
Well, I mean, how old is he?
I think 29.
He's probably got another, if he wants to play another, I mean, a guy like him, you don't put a ceiling on him.
Yep.
But, you're talking about 10 sacks a year for another 6 years. Like, there was a point where almost every rusher slows down. Aaron Donald never did because he was just like, I'm out. But I think 160 is kind of like, if you had to put an over-under on his career, I'd say 165.5.
As many sacks as he
I'm taking the over.
Give me the over.
Bruce Smith has the record at how many?
200?
That's correct.
Yeah.
You looked at that list a time or two?
Oh, I've looked at that list a time or two. Like a kid with a poster on his wall. Not that I ever was like, yeah, I'm going to be like those guys. But there was a hiccup where you're like, you're looking up and you're like, I've got 50 sacks through 6 years. Like you do all this math. And then what you realize on the back end of your career.
It gets harder.
It gets harder. Things have to break right. You have to be in the right situation. You can't get old. And most guys like me, they get old. And, you know, guys like TJ Watt, for some reason, don't look old.
How many would he have if he played for a team with a great offense?
Oh, now I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to imagine him getting more sacks.
He's on the field a lot. That helps.
Yeah, for real. And he's always got, listen, that's a good defense to play in. And they got good guys up front. Just talking about the Steelers here for a second, like, they got some fun rushers inside. This could be a fun team. But you got to win games like this. You got to go to Denver and take care of business on the road.
The Giants are in Washington.
We will bring on Steve now. No, we've got 2 7 circle of hell games to hit, and then we're done, and we go to Steve. But Giants in Washington, you think this is the right side being on the Giants? You think the Giants are the right side?
Well, yeah, this is
what they do.
This is what we call ownership.
Okay. Yeah.
15-6-1 the Giants are against the Commanders the last 11 years. Brian Daboll's 4-0 against the Commanders. Daniel Jones has played 61 games as an NFL quarterback. He has 22 wins.
If you don't give him out in the locks,
5 of them are against Washington.
If you don't give him out in the locks, what do you think that says? Just so I know in 10 minutes.
That this game isn't worth.
It's not worth it. It's not worth paying any. Listen, here's why you pay attention to this game. I want to see Jaden Daniels week 2. I think there were some things week 1, and people were like, yeah, you know, none of the rookie quarterbacks look great, and it's true. And it wasn't a high hurdle to clear, but this is the guy to me that looks most pro-ready. And, hey, forget about some of the throws that he might have missed. I mean, they're down 16-7 at the half, and they have a shot to make it 16-14. I mean, he's got McLaurin. He just misses it. But the ball's at least online. It's not out of bounds. I mean, like, what a low bar we've set with quarterback play week 1 in the NFL. But, like, the ball's not – it's not sailing. It's not hitting anybody in the head sitting on the bench. Like, he's also – really calm in the pocket, which is my favorite thing about him. Like, he ran a lot last week, and that's going to be a weapon for them. But I saw a stat where he didn't flee a clean pocket barely at all. Like 92% of the time, he stayed in the pocket when it was clean, which is a good sign. And they got the ball out quickly. You know, that to me, the thing I'm talking about with Caleb Williams is like, you know, at least what Cliff's doing early is you can tell, and he talked about making this an emphasis, just get the ball out. Don't get this kid killed. I thought Eckler, in the little bit I saw of him, looked like fresh. So he's still Eckler. McLaurin's still McLaurin. You know, it's not the best team in the world, but I am excited to see Jaden Daniels' development as the year goes on. And for the Giants, man, I don't know if there's a team so early in the season that I can remember feeling this bleak about relative to just everything that's gone on. Like, yeah, the Panthers suck, and we'll get to them in a second. But the Panthers sucked last year. No, the Giants sucked last year. But 2 years ago, the Giants won a playoff game. What the fuck happened?
I don't know.
Because the defense has gotten better, in my opinion. Dexter Lawrence is still Dexter Lawrence. You bring in Thibodeau, who I actually think is a good player. I was not a fan of the way he could give a fuck less what I have to say. Because I can tell he's that kind of guy, and nor should he care what I have to say. That guy's going to have a chance to be better than me. We'll see. But that's not really what this is about. What it's about is when you lay an egg and you run up on a team like Minnesota who jumps you at home and you don't get any pressures. I've been there. Like, the situation's not great. Like, I've been in those games where it's like, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to have 3 sacks? We're down 2 touchdowns right off the bat. But when you get up at the podium, just be real. Just be real. You know, like, just say, hey, man, wasn't our best day. We'll get them next week. That's all you have to say. I did not like that response. And, you know, this is about football, but, like, I expect to see a lot better out of that front, right? Because they're a good front. He's a good player. Brian Burns is a stud. You gave up a lot to get him. They have to make their presence known this week. You got a rookie quarterback. Like, you got to win this battle.
Hell yeah.
And you got to maintain ownership.
Commies fans, a bunch of homophobic Maryland Hill Jacks holding on to that R word like they're waving a Confederate flag.
That's what the guy said.
Todd Bowles. Did you hear this?
No.
He was like, the Redskins, the Redskins, the Redskins, like 5 times at his presser.
Old habits.
Old habits.
All right, so Chargers are in Carolina.
Yes, they are.
Charlotte, North Carolina, to be specific, where they are 6.5-point favorites over Bryce Young and the 47-10 loser Panthers.
It's a storm advisory.
Oh, yeah?
The Bolts, they're coming to town. They're going to run roughshod over this group. Now, dogs of 4+ points after a blowout of 35 or more. Off of that, they're 48-18-2 against the spread.
Wow.
So anybody that's brave enough to walk this plank, please,
you know I am.
Leave your name in the comments and we will big you up on the show if it. But there's no way I'm touching that. Probably won't touch this game at all. Clowney didn't practice.
Derek Brown out for the season.
It just gets worse in Carolina. Now, I'd love to chalk the first game up to, hey, it's Dave and Bryce getting on the same page and that sort of thing. But that's a lot of getting on the same page, man. That's like you're not in the same book.
Yeah.
You trying to think of a book?
I'm trying to think of really big books.
Yeah, like the Iliad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm back. Just find my page in the Iliad.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Like, we got.
And if you need my help opening it,
over and over.
I can help you.
Yeah.
Bryce.
What page you get? I got 313.
They're not on the same page, and I withhold commentary on the Panthers until I see them one more week. Like, your fans, consider yourselves suspended for a week. Like, you don't get any analysis. You just get riffing on how bad that team looked. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And, man, if the Saints go get walloped in Dallas.
0-17 is possible.
So, I don't know, man.
1-1 is possible, too.
Here's what's impressive about the Chargers. And they're going to do this a lot this year. I had a fan in our IG comments or something. He was like, you got to watch out. You're going to be eating your words about the Bolts. And, listen, I would love for nothing else than to be, talking about the Chargers in January. That'd be so friggin' fun. It would.
2 hardballs.
It would be fun. They're going to win a lot of games this year because the main thing is the main thing to Jim Harbaugh. You got this shiny new toy. All you probably want to do, every other coach in the National Football League would have come into LA and been like, number one thing is to get this quarterback right, to give him weapons, to get it right for him. And I want to prove week 1 that I'm the guy that fixed him. It's the OC or the head coach. His strategy was to just start building a culture and picking the right guys. And I think it's going to be reflective of the way he coaches games. It's going to be like whatever it takes to win this particular game. He's done this in the past. I mean, if we got to run the ball 40 times, we're going to run the ball 40 times. And I thought last week you saw a good mixture of, hey, we're going to pound the ball. And then as the game opened up, you got to see Justin work a little bit more. And listen, you go in that locker room after the game, you hear Dobbins talking. You can't help but be happy for that guy with everything he'd been through. Steve talked about it the other night.
Mm-hmm.
They just have a good vibe about him right now, and they have an opportunity to build on that. The Chargers cannot miss this opportunity. They can't walk out of, what is that, U.S. Bank Stadium? One of those banks.
Bank of America.
Bank of America. The Bryce Stadium. The Bryce Stadium. You can't walk out of there without your foot jammed up their ass. It's got to be ugly. You got to build some momentum, and you got to build some confidence with this team, which you've already done. If you're a Chargers player and you start the season 2-0, you feel like you're playing with house money, and you trust your coach because it's working. And it doesn't matter if it's the Panthers or the Raiders. Just start strong.
And I don't know if you saw, but in our weekly Jim Harbaugh viral video clip before the Chargers Week 1 game, he was
the hugs.
He had the hugs and the shoulder pad slams. And Justin Herbert said, I didn't realize he was going to keep doing it, so I wasn't ready for it. But next time I'll be ready.
Oh, yeah. Next time. I had a coach named Chuck Cecil. Yeah, he's just pounding the shit out of his shoulder pads. He's making sure he's punching him. And then my favorite part is the last little slap. Like, okay, I've been doing this enough.
Checking the numbers, make sure that
anybody. And I saw somebody comment that they thought this looked awkward. I'm like, no, it's just Harbaugh, dude. I don't think it's awkward. I think it's just Harbaugh like introducing his game day persona to Justin Herbert.
And it's Week 1 for him, like back in the NFL. He's stoked.
I had a coach named Chuck Cecil, who they called like the Neanderthal or something. I don't know. He was a little wiry white guy. He still is. And he played like safety for the Packers. And if you look up Chuck Cecil hits, Scud Cecil. Scud, due to his hit or miss approach to tackling opponents, he often left his feet and led with his helmet. And much like the infamous missiles launched during the Gulf War, he would occasionally miss or completely arrive late. We could never have a nickname like that now. You know? Drone Strike Baker. Anyways, Scud Cecil. Scud Cecil used to just obliterate people, like the scary kind of hits that we've gotten out of our game, but at one point they were acceptable. And this guy was like 150 soaking wet. But he was coaching under Jeff Fisher. And before every game, he would come up and grab me by the shoulder pads and headbutt me in my helmet without a helmet on himself. Now, I don't know if this is something where he's calcified his frontal lobe to the point where it's just like he doesn't even feel it. It's like Alex Pereira's leg or something, like one of these UFC fighters. But one time he headbutted me so hard before a big game. Yeah, look, you Googled him. There's a picture of him bleeding out of the face. I saw that very same thing 30 years later at the Edward Jones Dome when he headbutted me. We had a big game, and he came up and he was like, I need some extra. And he headbutted me probably 5 times. He walks away, and he's got blood streaming down his face onto the microphone on his headset. I turned to James Laurinaitis. I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, that's the kind of thing that you're going to get from Jim Harbaugh.
Is Scud doing that to every starter on the defense? Or just, okay, all right. I was going to, that's a lot.
Because me and James Laurinaitis used to always like headbutt each other as hard as we could before the game. And I would do it to James just to like piss him off because he'd be like, God damn, what the fuck? And I'd just come up and grab him and like, bam, bam, bam. It explains a lot now.
There's Chuck today.
He looks great.
Yeah.
Chuck's the man. He's down in Arizona. Is he coaching in Arizona still? Yep. He's an awesome dude. But he used to headbutt the fuck out of me and James Laurinaitis. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, yeah, Jim Harbaugh, bring that Harbaugh energy. Chargers, just thump them.